I want to talk a little about inner child today and just tell you some of the techniques that I use when working with this. So, when things happen to us and we feel really intense, not just the usual, like, okay, this is what's happening, I'm going to handle it. It's like there's this sudden rush of, I can't handle this, or how could you, or just the intensity feels like it's an emergency, it's urgent, it's time, like and it's like do or die. This usually points to a place in you that's for when that was true, for when that was true. Um, I've talked a little bit about this and I've written about this as well, but it just seems like it's so important. So I wanted to introduce another strategy that I have when these moments come up, and that is to take the child or the childlike part of yourself and attribute it to an object. In my office, I have a little baby that I use, who we use for inner child work. But I wanted to introduce you today to my inner child. Here she is. So I spent a couple of weeks in a very strange pocket of the internet around the topic of realistic dolls. And I spent a lot of time finding one that reminded me of the way that I looked when I was little, and that felt like she would do a good enough job as my inner child. So one of the reasons why this can be useful is because it's very clear that this is the baby and I am the adult. So in inner child work, we have two parts always. The one that's childish and that's overwhelmed, or that feels like it's having too many feelings at once. And then there's the one that can hold it all, the one that can see this happening, that isn't necessarily in that moment anymore. So one thing that this work does is it separates the two really clearly in a way that can be hard to do when you're just navigating your internal experience. So another thing that's really powerful about this is that I can be really gentle with this baby. I can hold her, I can put her in her bed, which I've made out of a lot of really soft material. I can put her next to me and I can just treat her with the gentleness that was needed once and that wasn't there. And it's a way of doubling down on self-love, on looking at yourself and saying, as a little one, I was worthy of these things. I didn't always think I was, and I wasn't always treated that way, but I was. And we can make that right. And so there's this maternal or sweet or soft part that is hard for us to do for ourselves. Like, you don't see me like going, oh yes, to you, to myself. That's kind of hard for me to do. That feels a little bit like a big leap. But to the little one, oh, absolutely. It's no problem at all. I want to. That part of me is very alive. That maternal part of me. But it's reached. It's reached. When we do this, and we're thinking of this child as ourselves, it is reached. It is as if I would do this to myself. And I would look upon myself with beaming love. And I can receive it. And then I can have this out breath, this release of the tension that's built up when we think that we're not worthy of these things, or that these things are never coming, or that it's not okay, or that we're not okay. So that's just a really short journey into using a doll or an external object as an inner child. But I just wanted to put that in the space and invite you to think about it, and think about what it might be like for you to hold a little baby and think of it as yourself, and how might you treat that little one. So I'll leave you with that.